Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. Coming up tonight, severe disruptions across London as the biggest rail and tube strike in 30 years hits the capital. 60 firefighters tackle a blaze at a tower block close to Grenfell, with officials confirming there were no serious injuries. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, it's a big one for the art calendar. The summer exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts opens today. We've been to check out some of the best up-and-coming artists. And the latest offering on stage at the Old Vic takes us to 1970s Pittsburgh, with unlicensed cab going places regular taxis won't. We'll have the latest from Jitney. First tonight, Londoners have faced double strike action on public transport today, with the biggest rail strike in 30 years colliding with a tube strike. Close to 10,000 London Underground staff have gone on strike, claiming proposals by bosses will cut jobs and change working agreements and pensions. The national rail strikes have also hit the London Overground and Elizabeth Line services today. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch was on the picket line at Euston Station and said they'll be campaigning for as long as it takes.
I can't predict how long this campaign will go on. We're campaigning. We'll campaign on the streets, in demonstrations, lobbying MPs and doing the best we can. Industrial action will form a part of that if we don't get a settlement. But our mandate runs for 6 months, and we will renew that mandate through a fresh ballot when we need to later in the year. We're hoping that doesn't happen. We don't want any more strikes. We're convinced we can resolve this dispute this week if we had the necessary goodwill from the other side of the table. So I can't predict how long it will be, but we'll be campaigning for as long as it takes to get a settlement to the issues that are in front of us. There's a mixture of feelings. I understand when you disrupt the railway service because of strike action, people get angry and frustrated by that. We also get hundreds and thousands of messages of working people, including railway travellers and passengers, who support what we're doing, because like us and like my members, they are subject to a pay freeze. And if you're a public sector worker, you've not had a proper pay increment since Cameron and Osborne were elected 12 years ago, and have been clamping down on wages and conditions ever since. So, you know, we understand frustration. Our members don't want to be losing their money during strike action, and they would prefer it if we could get a deal. That's what we're pursuing.
Well, the Prime Minister today warned commuters that they must be prepared to stay the course in the face of the aggravation caused by rail strikes.
We need the union barons to sit down with Network Rail and the train companies and get on with it. And we need, I'm afraid, everybody, and I say this to the country as a whole, we need to get ready to stay the course. To stay the course, because these reforms, these improvements in the way we run our railways are in the interest of the travelling public. They will help to cut costs for fare payers up and down the country. But they're also in the interest of the railways, of railway workers and their families. Because otherwise, if we don't do this, these great companies, this great industry will face further financial pressure. It will go bust, and the result will be they have to hike up the cost of tickets still further so that people don't use the railways at all, or use them much less than they used to. And that would, I think, be a disaster for this country and for our economy.
Now, the impact of the strikes has been felt across the capital, with many who can't work from home struggling to get in and students facing the risk of missing exams. Let's hear from some of those impacted.
I'm about to get 3 buses. My husband got a very expensive taxi. I think all it does is antagonise people. Everybody's short of money at the moment. They're actually costing the general public money that they probably haven't really got. So I'm not sure I do have a lot of sympathy.
I feel it's very inconvenient the way things are going on, you know, because it's the people that suffers at the end of the day because of all those strikes. And I needed to rush home today because there's a member of my family that's not well, and it's worrying me. And how long is this going to go on for? It's not fair on the people, and I feel that's the government, that's what they're there for, to get those things put right.
It's been a bit compromising because we had a day planned. I have a friend arriving at Gatwick and she can't get to us.
We came an hour early to avoid the busyness, but it was actually really quiet. I think people avoided getting on the train today because of the strikes, and it was a really easy journey.
I want to use buses, but the queues for the buses are just way too much, and buses are not really my thing.
Well, picket lines also formed at Euston and at St Pancras stations throughout the day as RMT members campaigned to have their voices heard. Well, black cabs are lined up outside stations. While experiencing higher demand today, people have only had to pay the usual price for these, with reports of increases in fares for other private hire cars. Uber users have been hit with a surge in prices, and travellers using Addison and Lee are having to pay a £5 surcharge for all journeys. Another day of travel misery for holidaymakers as well, as many are stuck on the platform at Gatwick as they bid to continue their journey. The strikes will cost London's economy around £120 million in lost output, a leading city economist warned. Simon French from brokers Panmure Gordon said he feared each of the 3 planned stoppages will result in a £40 million hit to the capital as commuters decide to work from home and diners cancel their plans. Well, we'll have more on the impact of the strikes on London's hospitality industry in the next 10 minutes as well. In other news, 15 fire engines and around 100 firefighters have been battling a blaze in a tower block in Newham this afternoon. Part of a flat on the 13th floor of a 15-storey block became alight. Around 60 people left the building before the brigade arrived. A spokesperson for the London Fire Brigade confirmed on social media that control officers have taken more than 40 calls to the blaze. Well, it comes as 60 firefighters were sent to battle a tower block flat fire this morning, located opposite Westfield Shopping Centre and close to Grenfell Tower. One person has been taken to hospital, and the London Ambulance Service confirmed paramedics assessed 2 more people at the scene. London Fire Brigade have said that 8 engines were sent to the block, which is on Queensdale Crescent in Shepherd's Bush. Officials have confirmed that there were no serious injuries. Incident Commander Liam Hall spoke from the scene to confirm the fire had been extinguished, saying that the response was a result of lessons learned from Grenfell.
At this stage, we have no reports of any serious injuries. A number of residents have left the building. I'm pleased to confirm the fire has now been extinguished, and we're now working hard to return residents to their homes as quickly as possible. We're very conscious of the proximity to this building, to Grenfell Tower. Our response to this incident has been based on the lessons learned from that incident. We've attended with a heavy attendance of fire appliances and utilised new technologies and policies to support us with that. In terms of the construction of the building, this building, Stebbing House, does not have the cladding system that was seen at Grenfell Tower, and as such, the building behaved in a way that we would anticipate in terms of compartmentation. With that in mind, we have followed a stay-put approach for residents, and residents have remained in their homes safely whilst we've dealt with the incident on the 12th floor.
Well, there you have it, the latest on that fire that has now been extinguished. A man who died after being tasered by police on Chelsea Bridge was not armed with a screwdriver but was holding a fire lighter. The police watchdog confirmed this as part of an investigation that was launched after he fled the scene and ended up in the River Thames. Well, police are still gathering information into the death of Oladeji Adeyemi Omishaw and are appealing for any witnesses who may have seen it happen earlier this month on the 4th of June. 80% of people with monkeypox in the UK live in London. The UK Health Security Agency confirmed this morning, that there are 766 cases, with 500 of them here in the capital, mostly affecting men in their 30s, with only 5 women confirmed to have it. The World Health Organization have confirmed that the rare disease is transmitted through close personal contact, and they're looking into the possibility that it could be a sexually transmitted disease. More than 115,000 Royal Mail workers are to be balloted for industrial action in a row over pay. Members of the Communication Workers Union are set to vote in the coming weeks on whether to mount a campaign of industrial action. Ballot papers will go out on June the 28th and the result will be known next month. Now, London-born author Malorie Blackman has become the first children's and young adult writer to be awarded the Pen Pinter Prize. Having written more than 70 novels, including the popular Noughts and Crosses series, Malorie follows in the footsteps of Margaret Atwood and Salman Rushdie, who have previously been awarded the annual literary prize. She will receive the prize in a ceremony co-hosted by the British Library in October. Let's take a quick check on the weather for you now. This beautiful sunshine is sticking around. Overnight it's dropping down to 13 degrees but reaching 20 again by the mid-morning tomorrow. Highs of 26 during the day. Looking ahead to Thursday, staying the same temperature but with some cloud cover coming in. We'll enjoy this nice weather. The rain is on the way in time for the weekend, so that will be a double whammy for anyone going to Glastonbury who's going to be struggling with not very nice weather and also lots of delays to the transport in getting out there. It's time for a break now, but coming up, more on the biggest strike to hit London in 30 years and how it's affecting the hospitality industry. We'll see you shortly.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
and welcome back. Time for a look at some other stories affecting Londoners now. Brits are set to see their annual grocery bills jump by £380 this year as food price inflation hits a fresh 13-year high, according to new figures. Well, the latest data from Kantar has shown that grocery price inflation jumped to 8.3% over the 4 weeks to the 12th of June. According to the research, shoppers are increasingly swapping branded items for cheaper own-label products as they look to manage their budgets. The British Heart Foundation is urging the government to consider introducing a salt levy in its national food strategy to ensure food manufacturers drive down the salt content in the foods that they produce. Well, it comes as the charity warned that progress on reducing the amount of salt people are eating has stalled, saying that people are consuming far higher levels of salt than they realise because much of the salt in our diet is put in the food before it's bought. And today marks the longest day of the year. And as it is tradition, thousands of people have greeted the sun with cheers as it rose over Stonehenge for the summer solstice. Well, those who observed the spectacle at the Wiltshire Monument encountered a chilly morning accompanied by clear skies as the sun glinted over the horizon at 4:49 a.m. This year was the first time that people have been allowed to attend the solstice in person since 2019, with the last 2 years events streamed online because of the pandemic. Now, as we've already been discussing in today's show, people have been advised not to travel because of the tube strike causing severe disruption across the capital. Well, it's the first of a number of strikes to be happening this week. To discuss the impact that this will have on the hospitality industry, Alexandre Santamaria is here. He's the founder of Aware Hospitality, a company which specialises in food and beverages. Alexandre, nice to see you. Working from home, no doubt, to avoid this disruption, I imagine.
Good morning. Yes, I am sadly working from home. I would prefer to be in the restaurants today.
Out and about, yeah. Well, it's a really disruptive time for people in general, but what kind of impact is this actually going to have on the hospitality industry, today being the first of potentially 2 or 3 more days of strike action?
Well, the impact is big, financially and operationally. Financially, obviously, there's less people in town, so our lunch trade is affected. And that could affect small restaurants, large restaurants, the fast food industry, as well as the fine dining industry. And also a big impact is in the evening trade, where less people in town and not everybody's got a car. Not everybody can go out in their own car to enjoy a night out. And when they do, they don't necessarily want to drive, which means the use of cabs and the increase in the overall budget for the night. We also see issues with the staff getting to work and with supplies, of course, getting the supplies to deliver. So overall, the impact is big. Financially, a week of 3 or 4 days sounds short, but it's not short at all. It's a very, very long time to go through. If you consider the drop in revenue for a week, it can often represent the profit for a quarter, which means this quarter's 3 month worth of profit could be gone for a lot of restaurants. So a huge impact, especially after what we've been through, the COVID crisis and the Brexit.
You mentioned there about the sort of the lunchtime and the evening trade and the impact that could have on those. With so many people actually working from home, as that's the kind of hybrid new way that we're all working at the moment, and many people not just simply eating at home anyway. And when it comes to the evening trade, the strikes perhaps might not stop people going out for dinner. They could still go out locally. They might just not travel for dinner. So which are there certain areas of London that perhaps are going to be more affected than others?
Neighborhood restaurants would be pleased, probably, in high density neighborhoods. I'm thinking in London of Clapham and Brixton and Shoreditch, where the people live there, the residents will go out to their local restaurants. I guess also all the delivery services will be doing well in the supermarkets. But these guys are not the one have been suffering the most during the COVID period, supermarkets and delivery. And right now, having a drop in revenue and profit right after what we've been through can mean some restaurant could close. Again, a whole quarter worth of profit is a big impact on the financials.
These strikes have been talked about in the news and by the RMT union and TfL for a few weeks now. Arguably, restaurants have had a heads up that this is going to happen. Do you think that has helped in the sense that perhaps they didn't buy as much stock? I know in the past when we've had these sort of overnight lockdowns, that's been the reaction from the industry is we haven't had time to prepare.
Well, there was hope. The government, there could have been an agreement between within negotiation between the government and TfL. So we were not 100% sure the strike would go ahead. As far as planning these things, it's really hard. You may want to reduce your orders, but you're not going to sack the staff. You still need to pay all your employees. You still need to pay your rent. There's a lot of fixed costs or semi-variable costs you cannot reduce, unfortunately.
And just talking about the sort of health of the hospitality in general since the pandemic, are we sort of out of the danger zone? Just looking, just being an observer and a consumer of London's brilliant sort of restaurant and hospitality scene, it seems that we are back to normal levels, if not even busier than what it was before the pandemic.
Well, the events business has been exceptional. In June, we're looking at figures that are comparable to a Christmas period other years. So it's been very, very, very good. The challenge nowadays is not on the revenue. The challenge is on finding the staff. For some reason, waiters and hospitality professionals are considered low skills, which means it's very, very hard to get them in the country now post Brexit, which I think is unfair to consider as low skills in hospitality. And the impact we're seeing today is shortness of staff, but of course, reduction in quality and skills level. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward.
Alexandre, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Alexandre Santamaria there with an update on how this week's strikes will be affecting the hospitality industry here in London. Now, a new book about a father and daughter's journey coping with the effects of a brain cancer diagnosis has hit the shelves. Marco Previero penned Walking on the Edge to highlight not just the issues parents face during treatment, but the ongoing care needed for those with certain cancers, even after the patient is declared cancer-free. Marco's story with his daughter Millie starts in 2013 when she was 7 and centres around the walks through nature that they would take together to rebuild her physical and emotional strength.
So treatment finished early November 2013 of that year, and she was essentially, for all intent and purposes, in complete remission. She did, over that time, regain, which was never a certainty, regain much of her vision. So from a functional perspective, she can see very well, although the optic nerves have been impaired by about 40%. And continues to be cancer-free, and from that perspective, she's now essentially out of danger. She has been left with long-term side effects that have a material impact on her quality of life. So she's on a cocktail of drugs on a daily basis. So her pituitary gland and hypothalamus have been damaged. So she's on full hormone replacement. We have had to trigger puberty at the right time. We've had to make sure that she has grown in the right way with growth hormones. And this really more as a result of the treatment as opposed to the cancer itself. I mean, that's the one of the paradoxes of brain cancer, is that you're never really cured of that particular disease because you have to live with significant limitations as a result of the location of the tumor itself. Because of probably a combination of all three treatments, so surgery, chemotherapy and radiotherapy, she also has been left with some learning impairment, so her working memory and processing speed isn't as good as it was before, so she's in a specialist needs environment at the moment. And as a result of damage to the hypothalamus, she has been left with a condition called hypothalamic hyperphagia, which means she's hungry all the time. So she doesn't have a trigger that tells her that she's full.
So it's about sharing your experience, I suppose, your personal experience going through this with your daughter and your wife and trying to convey that to anyone else who might be affected. But is it also about trying to get across those points from a medical point of view and trying to raise awareness about this issue of when someone goes through this and they come out the other side cured, in inverted commas, there's still a lot of work to be done?
I mean, it's a good question, and both of those things really. So, as a result of her condition, and in order to try and rebuild some of the strength that she had lost, both physical and emotional strength, we started going on walks, which is what the book essentially is about, and we started talking, and those walks essentially took us outside of ourselves. We were able for about 1 hour to just forget about some of the difficulties that we were going through, and start talking honestly about cancer and the limitations it was going to impose on her life. And that was useful on several levels. First of all, as parents, Vanessa and I, my wife, were essentially newbies at every stage of that particular disease. You know, there's nothing can prepare you for the trauma that follows a brain cancer diagnosis and the traces that it leaves behind. And I felt at the time that there wasn't enough factual storytelling material available to me to try and understand the type of challenges that I might encounter at the various stages of both disease or cure progression or treatment progression, but also beyond that as a result of the nature of the disease itself. And secondly, how Vanessa and I felt about cancer and the limitations that it was going to bring really turned out to be very different to how Millie felt about those limitations and the disease that she had. And so it was interesting to really compare those two perspectives from on my side, because it was helpful to me, I suppose, to reconcile some of the anxiety that had grown as a result of Millie being diagnosed with brain cancer. So the book is an attempt really to address those two things, to share some of the insight that we have gained as a result of those conversations over 5 or 6 years, in the hope that they might be helpful to other people that are going through, if not the same type of challenge, but certainly similar challenges in the context of their own lives.
And obviously, perhaps some of the more poignant moments in the book are when you go on those walks and you have those quiet moments with her. What are your memories of that?
What I remember most vividly really is the nature and quality of those conversations, and the fact that really by chance we decided to have conversations during walks in nature, and that provided us really with an ability to not really be father and daughter for an hour or so, but really to be, fellow travelers trying to figure things out. And it enabled us, because we were taken out of ourselves, it enabled us to have really honest and frank conversations that perhaps we wouldn't necessarily have had if we hadn't used walking in nature as a means to make Millie better.
That was James and Marco there. Walking on the Edge is out now. Marco wrote the book alongside the Success Charity, who helps survivors of brain tumours. You can head to successcharity.org.uk for more information. You're watching London Live News with Tanya Francis. Reminder of our top story coming up after the break. Plus, we'll take a look inside the annual and highly anticipated summer exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts. Stay with us.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and
and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back. A reminder of our top story this evening. Londoners have faced double strike action on public transport today, with the biggest rail strike in 30 years colliding with a tube strike. Close to 10,000 London Underground staff have gone on strike, claiming proposals by bosses will cut jobs and change working agreements and pensions. Well, the national rail strikes have also hit the London Overground and the Elizabeth line services today. Black cabs are lined up outside stations while experiencing higher demand today. People have only had to pay the usual price for these, with reports of increases in fares for other private hire cars. Uber users have been hit with a surge in prices, and travellers using Addison Lee are having to pay a £5 surcharge for all journeys. It's also another day of travel misery for holidaymakers, as many are stuck on the platform at Gatwick as they bid to to continue their journey.
It's not fair on the people, and I feel that's the government, that's what they're there for, to get those things put right.
It's been a bit compromising because we had a day planned. I have a friend arriving at Gatwick and she can't get to us.
We came an hour early to avoid the busyness, but it was actually really quiet. I think people avoided getting on the train today because of the strikes, and it was a really easy journey.
I want to use buses, but the queues for the buses are just way too much, yeah. And buses are not really my thing.
Right, let's bring you this now from across London's arts and culture scene. The summer exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts is open to the public from today. All works have to go through an application process for the annual exhibition before being chosen by a panel, including Grace and Perry. Well, we went down to check out some of the best up-and-coming artists.
This year, the summer exhibition is finally back in the summer. The past 2 years, thanks to COVID, it was always in the autumn. Now we're back in the summer, and this year's theme was set by the coordinator, Alison Wilding, Royal Academician, and she decided to focus on climate. And in the way she wanted to phrase it was climate in all its dimensions. So it's not just about the climate emergency. That's, of course, what we think about when we hear climate nowadays, but also can be any manifestation of climate. It can also be just, a sunny day, the weather, however you want to look at it. And that was the invitation to everyone contributing to the summer exhibition, to follow that theme if they, chose to do so. The summer exhibition, of course, ever since it's been around, is the largest open submission exhibition in the world. So we receive about 15,000 submissions on an annual basis, of which then works are being chosen by the committee of artists to be included in the summer exhibition. So in that sense, it is accessible to everyone. All you need to do is fill in a form, pay a small fee, and then submit your work in the first instance digitally, and then the selection is being made by the summer exhibition committee. So in theory, everyone has the opportunity and the chance to be in the exhibition, and it then depends on whether the work is being chosen by the academicians. This year, as every year, in principle with the summer exhibition, we invite an artist to create a sort of bigger installation in the courtyard. This year it is Cristina Iglesias, who is a Spanish artist, who also won the Royal Academy Architecture Prize in 2020, and she has realized a sort of pavilion, if you like, that on the inside is sort of a labyrinth that somewhat imitates nature. But you can also look outside, and the pavilion is surrounded by a landscape, if you like, that was specifically created around that with rather big plants. So all of a sudden we have this sort of green oasis in the center of what is otherwise rather stony, very urban central London. Every year the summer exhibition is created by a group of Royal Academicians. So there's the coordinator leading then a committee of people, of academicians, and they each curate 1 or 2 rooms in the summer exhibition. So we are in the room that was curated by David Mack, Royal Academician, and then indeed Grace and Perry has contributed, Farshid Moussawi, an architect, and Neil McLaughlin and Rana Begum, for example, have combined forces, a fine artist and an architect, so their room contains both architecture and fine art. So it's as every year, every room therefore also has its own flavor in terms of the aesthetic of the hang and the choice of the works in each room. This year have just shy of 1,500 works in the exhibition, but there are always works that sort of stand out for you. So one big work is The Lemon, as we now call it, by Kathleen Ryan, and it's the poster image of the exhibition, and it is actually looks from a distance just like an oversized lemon with sort of where there's mold growing on it, but when you look closely, it is made up of thousands and thousands of small crystals and semi-precious stones. So it is quite deceptive that on the one hand it's something that is sort of what we would almost want to think to throw away, and then at close inspection it looks really precious. And then by Marina Tassabaum, we also have in the architecture room a rather spectacular installation. She's an architect working in Bangladesh, and it's called Small House. It's a flood shelter, so it's meant to be used in flooded areas where you can sort of live in a sort of elevated building in a wet environment. So it's really, once again, as every year in the summer exhibition, a really wide range of different objects. From its inception, actually, the annual exhibition of the Royal Academy was created in order to help the Royal Academy schools. The Royal Academy schools are tuition-free, so we need the schools to be financed, and the summer exhibition has always contributed. So it is a selling exhibition. Most of the works in the summer exhibition are for sale, so I can only encourage everyone to come along and look around, and you're bound to find something for yourself, and the prices really range from £50 to £500,000 and everything in between, so there's something for everybody in it.
Well, that's the summer exhibition, and it's on at the Royal Academy of Arts until the 21st of August. Time for a break now, but in the next part of the show, singer-songwriter Tom Spate is back with his latest release. We'll be speaking to him about that and his upcoming tour dates with Sophie, Ellis, Baxter.
Wherever you may land, I ain't sleeping. Roll the dice again.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back to the last part of tonight's show. Now, singer and songwriter Tom Spate is back with his latest release, Roll the Dice Again. With tour dates planned with the likes of Sophie, Ellis, Baxter, Tom is preparing for a busy summer of live shows. He's been chatting to Anthony, but first, let's hear his latest track.
Catch a plane, I'll see you in the morning. Catch my heart when you see it falling. Wherever you may stand, wherever you may land, I ain't sleeping, roll the dice again. See the sunrise.
There you go, just a taste of that new track. It's a classic Tom Spate, I would say. Does it feel weird to say that, you're almost creating a genre now of music? That to me, we've chatted so many times, it's clearly one of your tracks.
Well, I was thinking actually, it's probably 6 years ago since I had my first ever TV interview, which was with you. And yeah, it's kind of, we did an album last year and it came out in September, and it was kind of more of like a festival kind of, like uplifting kind of record. And for this EP, I wanted to kind of bring it back to what I think I do best, which is my acoustic kind of sound really. And yeah, it was a lot of fun making it, and hopefully people enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the last 6 years, or so have been huge, haven't they, in terms of some of the things that you've racked up on that CV. Glastonbury, touring and sharing stages with some of the biggest artists. When do you reflect, or do you actually reflect when you're writing the music on what's happened to you?
I think the pandemic was kind of like a time for reflection for me. If you told me 6 years ago that we'd tour Brazil, America, Mexico, all these amazing places, I wouldn't have believed it. And we have done some great things, but I feel like I've still got a lot more to give really, and I feel like I'm only just getting going as well.
When you're writing an album like this that is so stripped back, there's got to be personal elements in there. And I know Roll the Dice Again has got a story behind it, hasn't it? Just share that with us.
Yeah, so I obviously suffer from Crohn's disease, and I've had that for like 15 years. And I think initially when I was writing it, the song is kind of loosely about, getting up and trying again, roll the dice again, like keep on going. And, Crohn's disease has it has a habit of, trying to keep you down. And for me, it's always just, trying to bounce back and keep making music, keep touring and staying healthy really. And it's, life, the lyrics is, life is a gamble, and all that kind of stuff. And you don't know what you're going to get, but you've got to try and, I suppose, make the best of what you got, really. It's
true, isn't it? We can all take away from that. You've got to just get on with what happens, don't you, and make lemonade when those lemons come and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it also made at Abbey Road. Was that your first time in that iconic studio?
No, it's kind of become a bit of a second home, which seems kind of crazy to say, but again, yeah, I made it in shorts, which is always a luxury. We did it last summer, and I did it with a couple of friends, and it was just a very easy, relaxing experience. Again, it was just nice to be making music after being locked in my bedroom for 2 years, really.
Yeah, Well, that kind of leads you on to that idea of being back out on the stage as well. Do you feel like perhaps in some ways there's been a regression in terms of perhaps stage confidence because you had to kind of have a pause? Do artists feel a bit nervous or more nervous now because of that kind of lack in doing it?
100%. I think my first proper show back was October, and it was the Shepherd's Bush Empire, and I was nervous, and I don't normally suffer from stage nerves because live is one of my favourite things to do. But since October we've toured again with Stereophonics and a number of other acts, and it's been good to get out again and see the people's faces singing the songs, and yeah.
I imagine you're one of those people who's prompt. I bet you don't make the fans wait. You're not one of those people who rocks up an hour late on stage.
Oh yeah, I'm like, because of Crohn's, I'm the least rock and roll person ever. It's like water, and when you get the rider and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty much water really, because I can't even have peanuts or anything like that.
You probably add some biscuits to it or something,
I don't mind a hobnob. Yeah.
There we go. All right, there's lots of other kind of wheaty chocolate-based biscuits available.
Lots of other,
going out into the summer now, we're hitting that kind of festival scene. What have you got planned? Where can we see you?
So we're doing some great festivals with Tom Grennan at Silverstone. We're supporting Texas. We've got a couple of dates with Sophie, Ellis, Baxter. So it's busy. And then I've got my kind of big end of year show, which is in September at Bush Hall, which is I think nearly sold out. So get a ticket if you can.
You can still just about squeeze in. Sophie Ellis Baxter was one woman who basically made the pandemic her own, didn't she?
Yeah.
You know, have you chatted to her a little bit about that?
No, I think that's coming up on July the 9th or 10th, that first one, yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's just nice to see people out and, you know, having fun again, really.
That's Anthony there speaking to Tom, and you can check out his website and his social media pages if you want to find out where he's going to be this summer. Now, August Wilson's Jitney has just opened at the Old Vic following a run at Leeds Playhouse last year. It's set in the 1970s in Pittsburgh, and it sees a group of unlicensed drivers take people where regular taxi cabs won't. Directed by Tanuki Craig, Jeff Imer and Solomon Israel star in the production. The pair have been speaking to Alicia.
It's set in 1977, a very good year for music, and it's set in the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a steel, or at the time certainly was a steel town. And a jitney is a word for sort of not quite illegal, unlicensed cab drivers. So, for instance, I don't know how old you are, if you're old enough to remember when we used to have a lot of mini cabs in London, and these were cabs, affordable cabs for people who couldn't afford black cabs. So it's kind of like that, and it's all set. The whole place set in the cab office, as well as the 5 drivers who work there. There are 4 other characters. There's a girlfriend of the youngest cab driver. There's a guy who works, I think, as a hotel concierge, who's a regular customer there. There's the numbers runner also takes his calls from there, and the estranged son of the boss of the jitney company is also in there.
How much did each of you know of the play before you got involved in the show?
I personally, I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of it at all. I knew of August Wilson through 2 of his famous works, Fences and Marina's Black Bottom. But I didn't know of any of the others. I didn't even know there was a cycle of plays. And this is the first play that he wrote? Yeah, and it hasn't been done for a long time. But our production is fantastic.
You all sustain a very, very convincing accent throughout. How's the training been for that, and getting to make sure that you do keep on top of it the whole way through?
With accent work, that's very specific. We have like a dialect coach that comes in, a voice teacher that helps us. Some of us, like Jeff, are just great with accents. But we do have somebody that comes in and we go through all of our stuff, and they pinpoint stuff that we can be very specific and make it correct and right to the era when the play was set. Because what people can just do is fling a generic American accent on it. But at that specific time when the play was written, the accents were very different to what you get in Pittsburgh now. So we had to be very specific and do our research.
Yeah, that level of detail really important. Is there anything that each of you do to get into character? Maybe putting on the shoes that you wear make you feel in character, or music that you listen to?
Costume plays a very massive part. And my character, he has like a jacket that he wears, so sometimes I put that on and that makes me feel, because it's like a winter jacket, and at the time when the play is set, it's cold in Pittsburgh. So that definitely helps. For me, costume is a big thing. I don't know about you, Jeff.
Not really. I think once I've learned my lines and I've got the understanding of who a character is, I really get into it. Having said that, I get to wear a wig in this show, and I don't often get to wear wigs. And when I had on, and there was a moment when I had on the full wig and the full costume, I looked at myself in the mirror, and it just felt right. It just felt like, Dub. Here we go, Dub, private investigator, down the Hill District in Pittsburgh, man. Yeah, going to get these honkies and all these suckers off the streets. And it kind of felt like that. And I've let my sideburns grow because, a lot of black guys had prominent sideburns in the 70s. My dad, sideburns were a very prominent feature of my dad when I was a teenager. And the mustache has grown as well. So that helped me get into character.
Well, that's Jitney, and it's on at the Old Vic until the 9th of July. Let's just take a quick final check on the weather. This beautiful sunshine is sticking around. Overnight it's dropping down to about 13 degrees, but it'll be reaching 20 again by mid-morning tomorrow. Highs of 26 during the day. Looking ahead to Thursday, staying the same temperature, but with some cloud cover coming in. Make sure that you enjoy this nice weather, as rain is on the way just in time for the weekend. Well, that's all from us tonight. Thanks for watching London Live News with me, Tanya Francis. We'll have more from across the capital tomorrow at 6 p.m. And between now and then, you can catch the latest across our social channels. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and YouTube at London Live. Have a great evening.